Welcome, everybody, to the Arvosis Report. John Arvosis here to talk to you about Ukraine. How is everybody doing? I get my TikTok going. I got my TikTok going, but get my screen going so I can see the TikTokers. If my TikTok is even working, evil that it is known to be. Let's see. There it is. TikTok's working. Good to see. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Give a quick hello, as always. See where you guys are from, if you would. Usually like to take the first minute or two just to do that. Hello all. Carol, how are you? I don't see everybody, but I see some of them as the names go scrolling by. I do see some of you. Yeah, still good news. Still good news today. So I've got a lot of updates, or actually maybe less than yesterday. I don't know if there's yesterday. It's funny. I listed them and then realized how many they are, but they fit on my page pretty short. So we're going to see if it's long or short today. But all good news today, really, which is great. So lots of good stuff. Hello, Berlin. I've been to Berlin a very long time ago. I was in Berlin the weekend, well, around the time the wall was coming down, early December of 1989. It was like December 2nd and 3rd. Very cool time to be there. Very exciting time to be there. Very hopeful. Anyway, but yeah. So things are good today. Yes, your friend, Mr. Trump, went to the Supreme Court today. That is true. Otherwise, yeah, I'll give maybe another half a minute, and then we'll get started here. As folks know, I do about a 20-minute news summary, excuse me, and then we do question and answer and all that kind of stuff. I have a number of videos today, too, to show you, some creepy, some good. And I did see that about Russia, the iodine being handed out. Actually, iodine's being handed out in Ukraine. Kind of scary. What do you do? In any case, all right, guys, I'm going to start, as always, just to sort of brief you on how to do this. So I'm going to talk, like I said, for about 20 minutes about what the latest is in Ukraine. On TikTok, we're broadcasting to a lot of different services at once here. So on TikTok, submit your questions in the Q&A link that is in my profile. So go to my profile, you'll see Q&A, click it, and leave your question there. That's the best way to do it. For the rest of you, obviously, you can use the question box at the bottom. I do occasionally grab questions and comments as I'm doing my presentation of the news, because sometimes they're interesting and relevant and helpful. And also sometimes you guys just have interesting facts that you know. A lot of you guys have a defense background, military background, foreign policy. So I'll sometimes grab your comments there. So feel free to throw comments in now, but I may or may not see them. But in any case, when I get to the Q&A section, TikTok, use the Q&A function. The rest of you use that. Also, if you want to do super chat questions, I very much appreciate those on YouTube, because those help support my work, because I am doing this full time on my own. Nobody's paying me. Literally, you're paying me. That's the only people paying me. So help out if you can. And finally, for TikTok, I very much like the GIFs. The only GIFs that don't work when I use the streaming like this, where I can get my cool background. TikTok's being slow again. TikTok goes slow at the beginning and then it catches up. So if you're noticing it buffering, it takes a minute or two and then TikTok finally catches up. It's annoying. But there we go. What we'll do on TikTok, the only gifts to be careful with are the glasses and the hats. Those don't work. All the rest work. So if folks, I know TikTok will come back. It'll come back. There we go. Thank you for the gifts on TikTok. Always appreciate those. All right, guys, I'm going to dive right in here. So I wanted to start with just an observation. I was talking to a former intelligence friend of mine. Thank you for the burgers on TikTok. Former, just that friend who was in the intelligence community. We'll leave it at that. And we were talking about Ukraine, and I mentioned about the Americans helping the Ukrainians. He goes, we're definitely helping them. He goes, we're definitely giving them advice. And I think I mentioned something about, yeah, but I hate to feel like taking away from them. And he goes, oh, no. He goes, no. He said, we help lots of countries. He goes, look at Iraq and Afghanistan. We help lots of countries with strategy. That doesn't mean they do a good job with it. He goes, the Ukrainians know what they're doing. They're very good. And that's why it's working, even though he goes, I guarantee you we're helping them with strategy. He said, but they're doing well because they're really good at this. And I thought that was a really great way of putting it, because even sometimes I feel bad when I say, we're helping them. But I think especially with Afghanistan and Iraq, I was like, okay, that's actually a good point. We helped those militaries for 20 years and didn't go so well. So Ukrainian forces are still liberating more settlements in Kherson and Kharkiv. It hasn't changed. Well, that's not true. I'm going to show you Kherson in a second. I actually uploaded a map to show you. Let me give you, this was a really good one to start with. So, and I upload some of them large, covering my face, because it does best, I find. I don't like to make them too small. So this is a map from the Washington Post, combined from information about the Institute for the Study of War, that think tank I really like, and others. And I'm going to grab my glasses here so I can see it. And what is nice about this, it shows in yellow, in that sort of mustard yellow, is territory that the Ukrainians have won back. Now, I'm going to show you on the map today that that's even old already. This was compiled yesterday. It's already old. Now, in Kharkiv, which is the Kharkiv and Luhansk, you see in the northern eastern region, that's advanced a little bit more to the east. But in Kherson, where a lot of advancement is taking place, there's been a lot of change. But anyway, just wanted to show you those two so you see it. Let me jump to, there's 8 villages apparently in Kherson alone that are newly liberated. Let me show you. This is a map I was showing you guys yesterday. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me step back a second. So notice again, 2 regions we're talking about where a lot of change is happening. Kherson, which is the south, you see right north of Crimea. Crimea is Ukrainian. The Russians stole it back in 2014. They're occupying it. Kherson, which is right north of Crimea. So that's the first region we're talking about. And we're talking about all of the land north of the river there. And you see it's the area with the mustard and then the pink below it. All of that north of the river we're talking about. And then way in the northeast, Kharkiv, Luhansk, etc., is the other area. You see the town of Liman, actually written in bold letters in the north and the east, right by the big word Luhansk. You see to the left of it, the town Liman. I will zoom in briefly just to show you. Where have I got? Liman, where was my Kharkiv 2? This was Liman yesterday. Yeah, so this was yesterday. Liman is number 3 there. What you've got going on in Kharkiv today, they're liberating a lot of settlements. What had happened previously was, a couple weeks ago, Kupiansk number 1 was liberated. Then, a day or 2 later, they went down to number 2, Izium. A couple days later, they made their way to number 3, Liman. Okay? Next up, the Russians have fallen back to Kremina, number 4, and to, I never pronounce it right, Svatove, probably Svatove, number 5. Those are the areas the Russian troops have fallen back to. And it's thought that one or both of those, well, it's not clear which one the Ukrainians are going to hit first, but we're definitely going to be hitting one or the other, they, not we, because all of these towns are really important supply routes for the Russian military. And as we know, the Ukrainians are very, 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 peek around at you, they're very, very, very good at hitting the Russian supply lines and making, therefore, the Russian troops even weaker by the time they get to them, the next Russian troops. So what you've got happening today, if you see Kupiansk, number 1, go to the east right across the river. And if you go down that river, you'll see a couple towns are even there, I think, Borova, some of the other ones. Well, a number of towns all along there on the eastern bank of the river got liberated today. So what the Ukrainians are doing is they're just slowly moving over. But they're going to eventually hit Kremina and Svatove. I can never pronounce that. Let me take you down to Kherson now. 8 villages were liberated today. Now, what's interesting with this map, this is the map I showed you yesterday. Yesterday, the Russian troops, the border of the Russian troops and the Ukrainian troops was the red line. Okay? Ukrainian troops north, Russian troops south. Today, the border, right before coming on with you, we think is the blue line. So you can see how the Ukrainian troops just came down and wiped out all of the Russian troops, either wiped them out, forced them to retreat, whatever. But either way, got a lot of equipment. And this is, mind you, just in 24 hours. That's a lot of land to cover and a lot of towns that they've liberated. They've liberated at least 8 major towns in that area there in Kherson alone. Now, note what's interesting in this region, and actually I'm going to jump out quickly here. Let's see. Is this the this is okay, actually. Look at the little hearts that are here on the screen, okay? The red dot in the northeast, that red circle, is Liman. So that's the big center of the fighting in the east that the Ukrainians liberated recently. Those little red hearts are in the area of what I'm talking about. The Ukrainians already have liberated in Kherson. You see that they're on the river there. You see where that river is. You see, if you go south, there's Crimea, the peninsula hanging off Sevastopol. I'm going to zoom in again, but I just wanted you to get a sense. That's that river, the Dnipro, that cuts through Ukraine and pretty much cuts it in half. If you follow the river, you see how it goes up to Zaporizhia, Dnipro, goes all the way up to Kyiv, the capital, and then north to Belarus. So it really cuts the river in half. Currently, almost all of the Russian troops are on what I'll call the east of the river, I guess, for lack of a better north-south, it depends where the river is. On the east of the river, there is a small portion, but not so small, of Russian troops north of the river. That's in Kherson, where the Ukrainians are fighting right now. I'm going to zoom in now again. So look at this map and you see the river going down. You see how, remember, the new blue line is the demarcation. The Russians are below, the Ukrainians are above. You see how that river cuts through. Well, there are I'm still seeing varying estimates, anywhere between 15,000 and 25,000 Russian troops north or west of that river, whichever direction you want to call it, above the river. 15 to 25,000 Russian troops. The Ukrainians have consistently blown up the bridges going across that river and have been blowing up the pontoon bridges the Russians are putting as replacements so that the troops that are north of the river can't escape when the counteroffensive begins. Well, now the counteroffensive clearly has begun in this region and then some. And what the Ukrainians are doing is trying to put those Russian forces in a real problematic situation. One of the bridges I think by Kherson, the town, number 3, marked on the map, is Kherson, the city. The region's called Kherson, but the capital of the region is also called Kherson, the city, like New York, except not the capital, actually. So Kherson, the city, there is a bridge. That bridge, I believe I read today, can still handle vehicle traffic, but light vehicles. So maybe, Jeeps and some trucks and things, but it can't handle tanks. The other bridge that's over by Novakhovka, and Novakhovka, if you follow the river from number 3 to number 2, look halfway along the river between number 3 and number 2, and you'll see Novakhovka. K-A-H, Nova and O-V-A, right? Novakhovka, there's a second bridge. That bridge has been so damaged by the Ukrainians that it can only handle foot traffic. It can only handle people crossing. It can't handle the Russians, any of their vehicles. So you can imagine 15 to 25,000 Russian troops are going to be in a bit of a pickle if they suddenly have to evacuate because they're cornered by the Ukrainians. So go back to my topic list. It is going very well for the Ukrainians. A Russian reporter on the scene in Kherson, which is that southern province that they're fighting in along the river, is calling it today a disaster. These Russians, you've got these, thank you for that on TikTok. The Russians have got, and I'm going to read you more on this, have got a number of military bloggers working for them. And basically, they're bloggers like we had I was a blogger. I was a big political blogger in the US back in the 2000s. I had a big blog that was very influential here nationwide, but based here in Washington, D.C. And the Russians have bloggers as well. In their case, people are blogging on Telegram, which is a Russian social media channel that a lot of the Russians use. A lot of the Ukrainians use it too. And they have been embedded with Russian troops, and they are writing about what's going on. And the Russians have been letting them do it. I mean, it's been kind of remarkable. The problem is things have been going bad for a while now. And the Russian troops are, hold on, I'm going to sit here and change my, one quick, because I'm noticing it's still being evil on TikTok. All right. I've lowered my definition, and we're going to see if that helps at all on TikTok, because TikTok's being very evil today. So anyway, the military bloggers are freaking out. So this one Russian military blogger on the scene in Kherson said, and this is in Russian, it's a disaster what is happening in Kherson, with all the Russian troops having to fall back and all the towns being liberated. He said, these places were abundantly covered with the blood of our soldiers as part of his lament. Like, we've given our blood, and look at this, we've got to give them up. Well, the New York Times did an article actually about these guys and went and found other Russian military bloggers. Listen, I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs. Pro-war, to give you a sense of how it's going, it's been very interesting to read the Russians talking about it, because it's basically against their own self-interest to admit things are going wrong. So when you read a Russian commentator saying, we're effed, we're losing this town and this town, it's probably true, because there's sort of no good misinformation reason that they would be promoting that information. So pro-Russian military bloggers said on Tuesday that the country's forces in Kherson province in the south of Ukraine faced a dire situation. The bloggers, who command large followings online, often have direct access to Russian troops at the front line. One blogger, Yevgeny Podubny, who works for Russian state television, described the situation in Kherson as critical. Another, Zakhar Prilipin, said that bad news was on its way for Russia in the province, and that its forces were vastly outnumbered, with sometimes as few as 20 soldiers per kilometer. A third, Alexander Kotz, apologized on Telegram to his followers for delivering depressing news, and said that Russian troops, thank you for that on TikTok, and said that Russian troops in Kherson no longer had the strength to hold territory they had captured, because they lacked personnel to fight a better equipped and reinforced Ukrainian force. So saying the Ukrainians were better equipped and better reinforced than the Russians, and the Russians were going to lose. Now I'm going to show you a quick clip from Kremlin TV that Julia Davis shared today on Twitter and elsewhere. Julia is amazing. She's Ukrainian-born and has her own project called the Russia Media Monitoring Project. I believe that's what it's called, a Russia Media Monitor, actually. And Julia watches Kremlin news shows every night, because she's Ukrainian, so she understands it, and translate these things into English and puts English subtitles. Every day, mind you, if she's in, I don't know where she is exactly. She might be in New York. If she's in New York, then she's got, I think Ukraine's 7 hours ahead of us here in the East Coast. But nonetheless, every day she's doing this. This is one of the Kremlin's top propagandists, who also has his own kind of podcast, radio show, whatever. Thank you for that on TikTok, talking about how badly things are going. I grabbed this quick, 2-minute clip. It's amazing. Watch this. Actually, hold on. I'm going to get rid of the branding on here. There we go. So now you can see the subtitles easily.
Это отличный план. Сейчас мы уйдем в стратегическую или в какую-то оборону. Они кинутся, и тут мы их начнем метелить. И одно дело, когда они защищаются, а другое дело, обороняются. Умеют ли они атаковать? Выяснилось, они умеют атаковать. И теперь наши военные эксперты с удивлением говорят, что не используют тактику НАТО. Вы что, шутки шутите? А какую тактику они еще могут использовать? А здесь они используют тактику еще советской армии. Вы что, шутки шутите? А это единственные 2 направления, которым они обучались. И когда на полном серьезе нам говорят, военкоры, мы вас предупреждали, там шло накопление, а может проблема не в том, что наши не знали, а в том, что им неким было укрепиться? Или где-то предательство, где-то трусость. Но принципиально это ничего не меняет. Почему принципиально ничего не меняет? Я напомню, есть одна из самых страшных и трагичных фраз, которую произнес Сунь Цзы, или которую записал. Я ее регулярно повторяю. И она звучит для нас ужасно. Что если ты знаешь о себя и знаешь чужую армию, то 100 раз встретитесь и 100 раз победишь. Если знаешь себя, не знаешь его, через раз победишь ты, раз победишь они. Не знаешь ни себя, ни их, 100 раз встретишься, 100 раз проиграешь. Вот чтобы не случилось третьего сценария, у меня вопрос, а мы их знаем? Мы их изучаем? Но по Сирии мы знаем, как действуют подготовленные натовцами армии. Или группы. Советскую военную науку мы знаем очень хорошо. А себя мы знаем? Если у нас появляется такое количество 500, не критичное, но существенное, значит, что-то мы про себя не знали. 500 – это обосравшийся, испугавшийся, убежавший. Мы себя знаем? Или та ложь, о которой говорят все снизу доверху, мешает нам четко знать? Так значит, надо быстро узнать. Надо предпринять экстренные меры, и виновные должны быть наказаны. У нас нет смертной казни, к сожалению. Потому что для некоторых, мне кажется, это единственный выход. Проблема, что у них и нет понятия офицерской чести, они даже застрелиться не могут.
There we go. I liked it. I don't know if I left it at the very end where he's like wiping. I like how he's wiping his eyes at the end. It's almost like sad. No, very interesting. Actually, Empty History Buff is saying how it's an interesting pivot, saying the equipment and support is what is beating them, not the troops themselves. Now, what is interesting about that, actually, somebody had mentioned, I think it was today, but kind of an interesting point, which is if it almost gives the Russians an out, right? If the Russians are sort of playing the game where, oh, we're only losing, right, because it's NATO, bad NATO is the one that keeps beating us, then that's certainly better from a Russian perspective than being beaten by Ukraine. It as much as their leaders don't want to admit that, you know, NATO's better than them, they really don't want to admit that Ukraine's better than them. So in an odd way, NATO involvement could actually help eventually settle this. Who knows? It's an interesting point. And I know things are unfortunately buffering really bad on TikTok. I've apologized for that. That is a TikTok problem, unfortunately. I'm going to actually report it to somebody today. Thank you for the October gift on TikTok, because this is the worst it's ever been. And it's a TikTok problem, unfortunately. Sorry about that. So New York Times today had an article about the towns being liberated. And it's really unfortunate because a lot of these villages that are being liberated are empty. They got utterly destroyed. The people were forced to leave. And very sad on its face, but it's also very relevant because later I'm going to bring up the Elon Musk thing today. Again, there's sort of more BS from him. Yesterday, Musk had come up with his own little peace plan, and part of his peace plan was, let's just have real elections in these territories. And without thinking, you know, who's left in these territories? The Russians are left in these territories. Most of the Ukrainians have left in a lot of these areas. So you can't have, even if the Russians were going to be fair, and they're not, even if you had fair elections, the Ukrainians aren't there anymore. So let me just read you a couple of paragraphs from the New York Times. In Liman, a strategically important regional hub reclaimed by the Ukrainian army on Saturday, a day after Russia declared the region had been annexed, wind whistled over city blocks where every home is obliterated to heaps of brick. In nearby Sviatohirsk, a once bustling town catering to tourists and pilgrims visiting a revered Orthodox monastery, the Roche Royal Hotel was eerily empty, nearly every window blown out, its rooms and corridors littered with discarded wrappers for Russian rations and broken glass. We are liberating land, but without people on it, Vitaly Zagoruko, a private in the Ukrainian army, said. Just his quote especially, we are liberating land, but without people in it, was just such a moving statement, but very sad and true as to what's going on. North Korea today weighed in as the first and only country to endorse Putin's annexation of southern Ukraine, which has been kind of funny. I mean, literally, the only country is North Korea. I mean, usually they've got like 5 of the crazies who endorse them. Iran came out today and said they could not endorse the annexation and criticized it. I mean, imagine being too extreme for Iran. Okay. And this is Iran, who is selling drones to Russia. So they're, quasi ally here. And even Iran came out and criticized it, which I thought was very interesting, but only North Korea. So that's all they've got so far. After 2 weeks, this was interesting too. Forbes magazine came out today and said that 2 weeks after the announcement of the partial mobilization, approximately 700,000 people, men, have left Russia. 200,000 of them went to Kazakhstan, and 700,000 total have left, possibly as much as 1 million, but they said conservatively, they've calculated 700,000 men have left the country in the last 2 weeks. Now, Russia's a country of about 150 million people. these men who are leaving are men of military age. It's not 60-year-old men who are leaving, right? It's men who are 18 to 30, pretty much, 35 maybe even. These are folks in the prime of their life. They are people who, in principle, right, should be going to university, should be getting their first jobs, should be getting married and having babies. They're not doing any of that. Also, these are people who have the means to leave the country. I mean, they at least are able to get to the border, have some kind of a money situation to keep themselves fed when they go abroad, which means these are not exactly peasants. They're not the poorest of the poor, probably, who are leaving. It's Russia's middle class that's leaving. That's a hell of a lot of men to be losing. What have I got here? Oh, this was interesting too. So meanwhile, Russia is claiming to have 200,000 new recruits already signed up with the mobilization in the last 2 weeks. That doesn't necessarily mean very much, because you've got to remember that they're not being trained. I mean, in some places, they're not getting a day of training. Other ones, they're getting literally a day of training. The Kremlin kept saying that their new recruits were going to get 2 weeks of training, which, again, the military folks have been saying isn't enough anyway. I mean, 2 weeks is nowhere near enough, but a lot of these guys aren't getting any. And any of them who are former military, the last time they've had any kind of training or military could have been 10 years ago. It could have been 30 years ago. So these guys aren't ready to do much. I was reading an interesting analysis of what the Ukrainians are up to, and how basically the Ukrainians are up against the clock to get as much done now in terms of land grabbed back, land liberated, before the winter sets in, because everything freezes over. It's a bad environment, and it's just a bad time to be fighting. They're going to still be fighting, but it's not a great time to be fighting. Secondly, they're concerned about Russian troops coming next year who are better trained, because maybe some of them will get longer training. I doubt that, but maybe. But also, they're concerned about, even in the near term, of Russian troops coming, these new recruits, and filling some of the gaps. Because you remember what I read earlier from some of the Russian military bloggers saying that the Russians just don't have enough men. And some of the concern is some of these holes opening up in the Russian defenses, that the Russians will be able to at least fill those holes with new recruits. Now, pretty much cannon fodder. I mean, they're guys that are there that don't have much military training at all, don't know what they're doing, but at least they're warm bodies that make you at least, they shoot back. It's not like you can just drive through and not have to deal with them. So that's some of what's going on with the Ukrainians. They were basically saying that these new recruits, even though they're not much, they're more than nothing. So they will at least cause a little more problems for the Ukrainians, but there's fewer problems now because these recruits aren't there yet. The Kremlin today praised Elon Musk's 4-point peace plan for ending the war in Ukraine. You'll recall that I talked about this yesterday, talked about it earlier in the show too. Musk wants to have elections across all the occupied territories. And then today suggested having elections in Crimea as well. I decided to do a little research in Crimea. And since the Russians annexed it in 2014, somewhere between 700,000 and 1 million Russians have moved there from Russia. The population is only like 3 million. It's actually like 2.3 million, but the Ukrainians were saying that's the official count, but the Russians have moved in about 1 million, so it's actually more like 3 million now. 1 million of which are new Russians moving there, and several 100,000 Ukrainians have left Crimea over the years because it is now occupied by the Russians. They don't want to live in Russia, and they don't want to live under Russian occupation, so they've left. This is Elon Musk's new bright idea is, can't we just let the people vote on their own and say what they want? Except, Elon, the people's homes were stolen. So it's kind of hard to let them vote on what they want. In any case, that just sort of annoyed me with him. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense today shared 2 images from a torture chamber in the town of Pisky-Radkivsky. Let me show you. I just wanted to put it on the map so you'll see where it is. So Pisky-Radkivsky is number 7 on the map. Remember what I told you earlier in the show. The Ukrainians have liberated number 1, number 2, and number 3. They are slowly moving east now. Eventually, they're going to go after number 4 and number 5, just for lack of saying the town names, but you get the idea. All of these are critical logistics hubs, important hubs for the Russian military to get fuel, food, ammunition, right? All kinds of support for the military. Well, as the Ukrainians, remember I told you earlier in the show how the Ukrainians are now east of that river going up and down, and they're liberating all sorts of settlements and villages east of the river. Well, one of the places they liberated was at Point 7, Pisky Radkivsky in Kharkiv. Now, what they found is they found a torture chamber. I've got just a smaller picture up because it was almost too gross to do a larger picture. That is a gas mask that was put on the head of a victim who was covered with a smoldering rag and buried alive. On the right is a box of gold dental crowns. Need I say more about the dental crowns? Actually, maybe I do need to say, for any of you who are too young that you're not up on this, always try to be careful of the NZ word, because I still worry about the morality police getting upset here. But Hitler's people in World War II would pull out the gold fillings of Jews and others in the concentration camps before they killed them, because they wanted to keep the gold and reuse it. That's why that picture of all the gold fillings of Ukrainians is super duper duper creepy. Now, it was shared by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense today. I will say 10% of me is still wondering more about the story. So I'm just, to be honest, I'm telling you guys, I want to know more about this. Nonetheless, creepy story. It's the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense putting it out, so I'm sharing it with you all. What I want, perfect timing for this now. There was a really good video, very moving, by a Ukrainian military member who is Jewish and who, I'm going to get rid of all of the, there we go, all of the filter. Ukrainian military member who's Jewish, and talking about the notion of what the Russians kept saying at the beginning of the war, that they were coming in to liberate the Ukrainians because the Ukrainians were being run by a government of NZs, right? Those people. And talks about this as a Ukrainian Jew. I will say he's talking about, except you can't see it. So I'm allowing this video because you can't see anything. He's talking about a Russian soldier who's been killed in front of him. You can't see the Russian soldier, so that's why I'm showing you this video. If you could see it, I would not be showing you this video. But watch this and listen.
Вот, ребят, пожалуйста, я израильтянин, гражданин Израиля, еврей, который родился в Украине, жил в Израиле, служил в Израиле, вернулся жить в Украину в 2014 году. Вот, пожалуйста, бурятский танкист из России приехал меня денацифицировать в моей родной стране. Вот этот вот биомусор, который в гражданской одежде, спизженной у людей в домах, вот, с поплавленными телефонами, с лутом, который он тут нажил, в гражданских носочках, походу женских каких-то. Вот это вот приехало нас денацифицировать, освободить нас от власти нацистов и подонков, и вот все, что они там лепят. То есть вы сумасшедшие, у вас, блядь, нет мозгов, у вас нет логического мышления, у вас отсутствует вообще напрочь какая-то честь и совесть. Вот это человек, который там родился 6 или 8 тысяч километров отсюда, азиат, 1,50 м роста, бурятский танкист, приехал меня, еврея, который вырос в Украине, денацифицировать. Пожалуйста. Вот так он закончил. И очень надеюсь, что так закончат и все остальные русские солдаты, которые будут сюда приезжать.
Anyway, moving kind of thing. I thought having an Israeli Jewish Ukrainian talking about the whole NZ argument. So what else we got here? Only a couple more things, and then we will do the Q&A. Senior Russian military leaders are now wearing USSR patches, which is really screwed up. That kind of blew my mind. They apparently have been wearing them. Thank you for that on TikTok, by the way. I did just see that. They've apparently been wearing them before, but the Russians used to hide the patch. The patch was on the arm. They used to blur it out in the photos. Now they're no longer blurring it out, which was sort of an interesting observation some of the military observers have noticed. President Biden today announced $625 million additional security assistance package for Ukraine, including 4 new HIMARS rocket systems. These are the rocket systems the Ukrainians have been doing an amazing job using. The Ukrainians have 16 HIMARS, another, I'm forgetting if it's another 10 MLRS systems, which are similar that they've gotten from, I think, the Brits, maybe the Norwegians and some others, maybe the French too. I'm trying to remember. But we're giving them another 4 HIMARS, which is really important. We are also providing them with 500 Excalibur precision-guided, GPS-guided artillery shells. The Excaliburs are a big deal because they are guided by GPS. Thank you, Annette, for that. They're guided by GPS, which is great because it makes them highly accurate. They have a range of 40 to 57 kilometers or 25 to 35 miles. One Excalibur can accurately hit a target that would require the use of 10 to 50 unguided artillery rounds. That's how precise they are. Now, one of the things that I was reading on this, because I just wanted to find out a little more about it, was part of the value is they can hit so accurately that you don't need 10 or 50 artillery rounds to hit a single thing. You can actually hit it with one Excalibur. The second thing is they're so precise that they can be used in areas where there's friendly fire nearby, whether it's civilians, whether it's military of your own military nearby, because they're more precise. So there's less of a danger of it going off course and hitting a civilian, hitting Ukrainian military, etc. And the military guys I follow were saying 500 of these is a huge deal. That's like a huge number to send. Tucker Carlson, I wanted to show you this really quick too. So Tucker Carlson is this Fox News personality, very pro-Putin, very scary. He's very pro-authoritarians. He's big on Hungary, thinks Orban is great, and he thinks Orban is great because of all the anti-democratic, and by democratic I mean democracy, moves that Orban has made in Hungary. Carlson is, he's pro-Putin. I don't know what else to call it. He's very anti-Ukraine, but he's very pro-Putin. Fox News, probably Fox News' top show. And here he's talking about the pipeline. And I want you to listen closely, the pipelines that got bombed, the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. Listen closely how and this is again how Fox News does it, how he says clearly it's now been determined that Biden blew up the pipeline, and you'll see how the propaganda mill works here. How he tells his audience. So his audience is going, because they don't follow the news like you and I do. So his audience is going, oh, okay, I didn't realize that was established. Okay, and he moves on. But watch this. Just watch this.
Come quote a tremendous opportunity. In fact, a tremendous strategic opportunity for the years to come. It's a good thing. Now that's an admission. That's the clearest admission we're ever going to get. No one could miss it, least of all the Russians. The Biden administration is responsible, either directly or through proxies, for the destruction of the Nord Stream pipelines and the environmental catastrophe and the economic collapse that will certainly follow. That is true. It's done. So the question is, where does that leave us? And that's the problem. This act leaves us, the United States, with no option but total war with Russia. There is no off-ramp now. There is no way out. We are all in, no matter what that means, no matter where it goes.
Welcome to propaganda in America. U.S.'s most valuable U.S. chip maker, NVIDIA Corp., had already suspended its shipments to Russia, but had maintained a presence there to support our employees and their families, the company said. Bloomberg reports that they are now ceasing all activities in Russia. Finally, I wanted to show you really quick a video of Iranian schoolgirls, because the protests in Iran are still going on. Just to remind folks, we had actually a special show on this on Saturday that you can still find on my YouTube account. Saved there, but an interview with a Persian-American scholar at Colgate University. But the Iranians have been protesting now for 2.5 weeks following the death of Mahsa Amini, who is a 22-year-old woman who was killed by Iran's morality police after she was picked up off the street and arrested for allegedly showing a little bit of hair under her hijab, sort of the Muslim or the Islamic religious scarf, a little bit of hair showing, which conservative Islam doesn't allow, like in Iran, and allegedly wearing pants that fit too tight. So they arrested her. She was beaten in the paddy wagon. and the arrest wagon, according to another woman who was there, and died in custody, causing instigating really 2.5 weeks of riots and protests. I shouldn't say riots, but protests across Iran, really challenging the military and the police. This is a quick video of schoolgirls throwing their scarves or hijabs in the air and chanting death to the dictator in school. Now, you'll notice the video is blurry because one of the things the Iranians have been doing, which is very smart, they are starting to blur out their videos because there's concern that the regime is using these videos to literally go through and identify who the various protesters are. So that's why the video is a little out of focus, but it's a great video. Watch this. Now, Judy was saying that she's seen videos where students have been locked in university and are being shot at. There was a university yesterday, I'm forgetting the name of it, has an S at the beginning, I believe, that the Iranian government cracked down on, sent forces in. They were shooting at people. Gosh, there was a video on TikTok, horrible, of a bunch of people getting, some women being arrested and taken away on the back of these motorbikes. And there's a woman in her car filming. And as she's filming, on the motorbike, so there's guy in front, woman, guy in back. So the two guys are these police. And the guy in the back takes his gun, turns, and points at the car of the woman filming, shoots, and you literally see the window smash in front of you. She screams, and that's the end of the video. And everyone's going, oh my God. I mean, horrific, absolutely horrific. People came to the rescue making a buffer zone. That's good. Okay, that's good. So yes, the protests are still happening in Iran. Was there something else Iran related? No. Let me say really quick, because somebody brought it up and I want to mention it. There was a story in the Times of, I don't know whether it was the London Times or what the hell it was yesterday, but it was kind of a BS story. And the national security folks are kind of pissed about it. You know, that maybe Putin was moving nuclear weapons to, the Ukrainian border on a secret train. Well, it was a BS story. All the defense people jumped on it, and basically it's a train that can be used to move nuclear weapons, but it can also be used for lots of other things. And this news story was basically a clickbait news story. So there is nothing to suggest that that story is real, but I wanted to bring it up because so many, I was looking at it too. So many of us were looking at this story yesterday. Yeah, kind of BS. What else here? Well, let's see what this is. Russia has hired a Kremlin guy in Norway in the mine up here. No good intentions, threat to people that boycott them. Okay, not up on that. Sorry, Caro. I'm just not up on that. Can't help you. All right. Yeah, the thing is, sorry, Umbrella Academy. I thought it was Umbrella Academy. You can tell the TV shows I watch. Umbrella Archives. That's very funny. I think it's sad that people need to help the Russian agenda in the West by scaremongering with nuclear war. It's not just that. Unfortunately, no problem, Cody. Unfortunately, too many people have fallen for the Russian propaganda. As I've said many times here, it is in Vladimir Putin's best interest to scare the hell out of you. Putin, using nuclear weapons, not very useful, right? On the battlefield, I talked to a friend about this too. On the battlefield, using nukes doesn't really help him. It just doesn't get him much. It doesn't help him strategically. He could try to use the nuclear weapons to scare the Ukrainians into submission, right? Like the US did with Japan in World War II, but he's not using those kind of nuclear weapons. Those would be, the big, really bad ones. I know it sounds crazy to say there's small and big ones, but there are. He would be using small ones that are used they've never been used, but they would be used as tactical weapons like little weapons to blow up a headquarters, things like this. There's just very little benefit in using them. And therefore and the negative of him using them is the entire world turns against him for real. And he even loses China, right? I mean, he loses everybody but North Korea in that case, and NATO enters the war. The better move is to scare the hell out of the West by constantly mentioning the nuclear weapons, by constantly, I would say, literally move a train full of nuclear weapons to scare people. Let people see you putting nuclear weapons on planes and flying near Scandinavia. I mean, scare the hell out of people, because what do we have? The big reason that Elon Musk came up with his crazy proposal to have these, elections in Ukraine, in the occupied territories where they wouldn't be fair at all, whether they want to join Russia, is because Elon said he was afraid of nuclear war, and he pretty much blamed it on Ukraine. It's crazy that we're going to have, that we're going to keep fighting this war when it could end the entire world. You scare enough people, and what happens? You get in. By the way, Elon Musk has a lot of followers, even though a lot of people beat up on him. A lot of people don't know their politics, and they see Lord Saint Elon say that, oh, Crimea. I mean, he even wrote that Crimea was Russia. It was idiotic to give it back to Ukraine, and totally it's been Russian since 1783. I mean, total bullshit. But people who don't follow politics follow Saint Elon and go, well, if Elon says it's not fair that what the Ukrainians are doing, then people are going to believe it, So in any case, and yes, I saw Elon's proceeding with the Twitter deal, which is an absolute disaster. And by the way, Elon's doing it, in my opinion, because he got beaten up on Twitter last night. Elon did all of this BS about the peace proposals, right? And hey, Harvey, I'll get to yours in a second, with the peace proposals, and got pissed off, tweeted last night and said, I'm getting beaten up by all the bots. The bots are basically the fake accounts. And he thinks somebody turned on all the fake accounts to beat Elon Musk up, not realizing no, it's not the fake accounts. It's actually all of us who care and are educated and know what's going on that weighed in and goes, you're an idiot for what you're saying. We are not bots. So Elon suddenly this morning decided he wants to buy Twitter again. It's because, in my view, he got beaten up last night. And Elon thinks, and I was going to say, I guarantee you, I can't guarantee you. In my opinion, I believe that what might be motivating Elon here is that Elon got beaten up last night, and Elon, being the megalomaniac that he is, who also doesn't know a lot about stuff, he knows about what he knows, and he doesn't know about anything else, but because he's an egomaniac, he has to inject himself. Elon thinks he's going to save the world by buying Twitter, because you see, he tried to stop a nuclear war and all the bots got involved. And he's always been concerned about the bot problem on Twitter, because remember, that was the reason he said he wasn't going to buy Twitter, was because of the bot problem. Well, now, because he's worried about nuclear war, Elon sees all the bots trying to stop him from stopping nuclear war. So Elon's going to buy Twitter to stop the bots and therefore save the world from nuclear war. I'm telling you, it's just my read of it, but I would not be surprised, because it's a little weird that happened last night, and this morning suddenly we're back. Exactly, NAFO, all the rest of us with NAFO, but that basically now Elon's back buying Twitter again. He is going to destroy Twitter. He is going to let Trump and all the alt-right racists, fascists back on. Twitter rightfully, justly, and very belatedly clamped down on all the actual neo-Enzis who were all over Twitter in 2016, and Twitter, literal neo-Enzis. These people were sending, I got them sent to me. They would send them to Jews. They assumed I was Jewish because, the people are idiots. But they would send pictures to Jews, and they did this to me, with pictures of the fireplaces at Auschwitz, and they would put fake flames in there, and then pictures of yourself, of your face in the not the fireplace, in the ovens that they burned the Jews in. And they would send that to Jewish reporters to try to shut them up. They sent it to me. I mean, horrific things these people did. Twitter would not clamp down on them. Finally, in the age of Trump, Twitter finally clamped down on everything. And this is why Elon's upset, because he thinks there should be free speech, because if we just let free speech blossom, everything will be fine on Twitter. So very dangerous. And Twitter's management, totally on board. They think it's great. They think it's freaking great that Elon's going to buy. He's going to destroy that place. Okay, first let me pull up Harvey's question, excuse me. Thoughts on Yevgeny Prigozhin, owner of the Wagner Group, who's a big oligarch, exactly, a big Russian billionaire, corrupt. Recent comments on the coup in Burkina Faso, didn't see that, stating we will collar the lot of them, stating they want to bring Russian prisoners out of jail to fight in the conflict. Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, what's to say, Harvey? The Wagner Group is pretty much working for it's kind of creepy, actually, because they're working for the Malian government trying to put down the insurgency there, I believe. The problem is they're Russian mercenaries that are murderers, and they're corrupt as hell, and they'll just kill anybody. So, I'm not sure what to say about it other than Jesus Christ. These people don't stop. Mind you, they're always looking for another buck, I mean, people accuse us of that. The U.S. has nothing on these people. That's just, it's despicable. Sorry, somebody else had thrown a flint. Elon is just trying to distract from his crappy robot last week. Oh, I missed. I heard about it, but I didn't really hear about it. I just heard that he was like putting out a lot of possibilities, but I didn't realize he launched a robot. I was paying so much attention to Ukraine, I missed it. Oh, that's funny. What's funny, because somebody was tweeting about the robot as the next CEO of Twitter, and Elon liked it. God. All right, let me look here at some of the Twitter questions from you guys in the Q&A on Twitter. Listen to me. You guys, you have me talking about Twitter. Some of the Q&A in TikTok, Twitter. I'm calling you people Twitter. Q&A. You said the nuke news was fake. I hope so. Why are they giving out iodine pills then? That's different. No, we believe it was fake, the news about the Russians moving nuclear weapons in a train to the border, that actual story was BS. The concern is the Russians have threatened nuclear war so many times now that the Ukrainians are getting worried. And honestly, if I were Ukrainian, the rest of us are taking the Russians seriously. We think it is a very, very small possibility that the Russians will use nukes, but it's a greater possibility. This was somebody's quote from the other day, and I loved it because I thought it was exactly my thinking. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's a greater chance of it happening now than 3 weeks ago. But I still don't think it's going to happen. But it's certainly more. If we were at 1% before, now we're at 3%, right? It's a greater chance because of everything Putin's doing. If you're Ukraine, that 3%, I'm just pulling 3% out of my butt, but that 3% is something you better be worried about because it's your country, right? So if you're Ukrainian, the Ukrainians, actually, John had sent me an article that the Ukrainians are giving out iodine pills in a number of areas because prophylactically, which means sort of before you get sick, just to be safe, to be careful, because it helps. I don't understand exactly. I've never understood what it does, but I know iodine helps with nuclear radiation. My guess is it binds to it or something, and it eliminates it from your system or whatever. But the Ukrainians are worrying about it, and understandably worrying about it. So, and you need to. The Russians keep making a lot of noise. And the thing is, even if it's a 1% or a 3% risk, it's a 1 or 3% risk of something catastrophic and awful. So you got to prepare for it. I see Twitter or TikTok as being evil and buffering again. It's the absolute floods the thyroid. Oh, so is it floods the thyroid and then protects the thyroid in that way? Okay, so it prevents the thyroid taking up the radioactive isotopes. Okay. Because the thyroid, for whatever reason, is the major place it would hit. Interesting. Okay. I did radio. Now other people are asking how it works. Okay. Let me pull up another one here from you TikTokers. Do you think support or funding for Ukraine in the West will wane in the winter? Wane, good word. Wane in the winter because of the cost of fuel in other countries? It could. I guess that's a question for the Europeans. I'd be curious, those of you in Europe, what you think, because I know we've got even though it's late in the hour for you guys, I know we've got a ton of the Europeans here. We always do. Do you think the fuel cost? First of all, the Brits are here. I keep reading about just terror about the fuel costs in Britain, but obviously the Germans are worried. The Germans are very worried. They should be, because you've been targeted directly by the Russians. Is that something that you think the your own people would sort of start to backtrack on their support because the prices get so high? I will say this: the right wing in America, the Fox News types, the Trump and the MAGA types for sure have been trying to push the notion, and they're pushing it more and more, that the Democrats keep spending money on Ukraine and they're not spending it on real Americans. And they talk about the border and immigration at the border or other problems. And we're not sending the money on, we're not sending the money to Americans. We're sending it to foreigners. And that if fuel prices were going through the roof here, right? If your fuel prices were tripling, you're instead of paying $200 a month in the winter, you're paying $600, and the other party is telling you it's because of the Ukrainians, and then you might believe it, even though it's not true. So let me just see here. So Ryan Boy is saying, I'd rather freeze than stop support. Judy is saying, our government has given us 150 pounds one-off and also 67 pounds per month to help with heating costs. Oh, wow. That's interesting in the UK. Very interesting. And a pound is pretty much equal to $1 now. So that gives you a sense of how much money that is. Jessica, gas prices are almost back to what they were pre-war by me. Yeah, in America, gas prices have gotten lower. I know Chicago, when I was there a few weeks ago, it's still very expensive, but the national average might even be down to, was it 370 again? What is the national average for gasoline prices? Wow, $3.42. Boy, that really dropped. Holy cow. That really dropped. Wow. Yeah, Chicago was definitely like $1 higher, unfortunately. But that also means some places are lower. Wow. Oh, hey, Flint. Thanks. We support Ukraine. It's trust we can't stand. Yeah, I know. I hear she's been having some issues. 304 by you. Utah is almost $4. Interesting. I read that there was still gas coming out of the pipes and that it might be on purpose to stop authorities going near it. You mean the Nord Stream pipelines? I mean, there was gas. The gas that was coming out, I think, was methane. Don't know. I'm not sure. Home heating oil in Alaska is $5 a gallon, except that I don't know. Is that, Ronald, is that abnormal? What should it be? Like, down in the lower 48, a lot of us don't buy home heating oil. A lot of what people here would have natural gas or electricity. How does that compare to what it should be, so to speak? Sort of let's say last winter before the war. Yeah, last winter then. Yeah, last winter was before the war. What should that be? Personally don't think high energy prices will impact support for Ukraine and Britain. It will, however, impact support for the conservative government. Oh, that's interesting. So people will make a delineation. A lot of well, of course, it makes sense the Brits are weighing in because it's earlier in the evening for you guys, even though it's late. From personal experience, I don't feel the people in the UK would backtrack on anything with Ukraine. This is Harvey. Any politician who suggested backtracking is political suicide. Now, that's interesting. Yeah, nothing, Lola, nothing on that submarine either. That was another story that didn't kind of go anywhere. Just looking here to see. Annette says Russia is trying to split NATO by making sabotage pipelines. Drones are being observed around Norwegian and Danish. Oh, interesting. Oil fields. Well, and they would be doing it just to freak you out. Because again, the Russians are trying to cause as much, sort of terror and concern as possible. And guess what? It causes energy prices to go up, because if people start worrying more and more about the Russians taking out oil fields, for example, in Scandinavia or wherever they are, then all of a sudden oil energy becomes less what's the word I'm looking for? The security, the expectedness. I can't find my words. I'm like Coco the chimp here, but sort of the continuity of the energy coming onto the market can no longer be guaranteed, because now people are worried, well, will Russia blow that up too? And the future price jumps because now they can't count on the energy being there. So that's the idea of why Putin could easily be doing it. Danielle, hello, Danielle. Had a small restaurant in Dublin till we shut it down last week. It had struggled through lockdowns, etc., but it was the gas and electricity bills that were the final nail in the coffin. Oh, wow. Wow. How much did they go up, Daniel? Meaning, was it a factor of like 2 or 3 or something, or 50%, or how much? Although anything significant is a lot, because my God, you just got off. Now that's kind of a scary thing too, because you're just coming off of COVID. Gas in Alaska is around $5.50. I mean, that's a little scary because, right, restaurants and other businesses that require customers in person just came off of COVID, so they had a lot. They did not have a lot of money, or they lost a lot of money, and now they've got to worry about energy prices eating their profits again when they're just coming back. Mike on energy prices in Germany. Apparently, Russia are still pumping, and Sweden may have evidence Russia was behind it. Oh, that's good. The pipeline being blown up. That's good. Up $1 in 2 weeks. Last year, this time was $2.50. Oh my God, Ronald. So it's more than doubled. So it doubled. The price of gas in Alaska has doubled. And when you say gas, are you saying gasoline or are you saying natural gas? I'm guessing maybe you mean gasoline. And Elise is weighing in on iodine. Iodine doesn't protect at all from exposure to external radiation sources, but if you ingest radioactive iodine created in nuclear reactions, the prophylactic iodine prevents you from storing it. That's what I was wondering about it preventing you from storing it, that somehow does it bind and then gets eliminated in your system? That's what I was wondering. But it's not going to help if you're irradiated from outside. It only helps if you ingest it, in essence. Okay. It's all over social media here that people want to stop paying for Ukraine. In Denmark, gasoline 1 liter is $3, and it's pretty much 4 liters to a gallon. So that would be $12 a gallon when we're down to $3.20 a gallon here. So you guys are 3.5 times our price here. Wow. No, that's not good. Sorry, I'm just looking here at what else we got here. Harvey, the only UK politician who has suggested backtracking was Richard Graham. He was egged in the street for doing so. Oh God. You got to love the Brits. I mean, the commitment to Ukraine is laudable. Jesus, that's amazing. That's amazing. So Annette, and I always forget, Annette, you're Denmark, right? I'm always going to forget this, but I think Annette's Denmark. I have a bad memory on this stuff. 30% more expensive for gasoline than last year. Wow. Oh, MT history buff. More on the pipeline being blown up. So the pipeline sabotage was caused by remote detonation that they've been able to determine. So basically somebody sets the bomb and then from a distance blows it up, and has been theorized that the Russians did it as a show that it could sever internet cables that run in the area. Yeah, I read about that. And also that was some of the concern I read about the Russians expanding their embassy in Ireland, and they wanted to do all sorts of crazy stuff down below or something. And for whatever reason, there was concern about whether that would, am I wrong here? But there was concern as to whether that would give them access to possible cables and things. It was really creepy. But I know you've got a lot of those underwater cables off of Ireland. I want to say like the internet cables and things like that. That I know. Tories are weak right now. Yeah, I mean, it's Judy says, my gas and electric prices have just doubled on the 1st of October. And is that here in the States, Judy, or where is that, if I may ask? With inflation, it's far cheaper to just make food at home. Well, you know what? I stopped going to restaurants during COVID. So I've gone to a couple restaurants, but I mean, quite literally, I've been with my family back in Chicago a few times, and I've been to one, maybe that was my French, if Audrey can appreciate. I've been to maybe, I don't even know, 2 restaurants since COVID began. I haven't started going to restaurants again because I'm still kind of creeped out. And now I'm worried about money, but I'm very creeped out about the restaurant thing, to be honest. Yes, I know about the submarine. Dimensional Legend is saying Putin deployed the world's biggest submarine, which can be armed with terrifying nuclear apocalypse drone torpedo. Yeah, it's creepy. There is apparently a torpedo drone weapon that can carry a nuclear bomb, and it is like a drone in the water, and you can, like a shark, you can just send it around, but it can be used to stealthily go into, because I was asking what is it good for, and people were saying you could use it to go into an enemy harbor. So you could go into Boston Harbor or, Norfolk, where the U.S. Naval Base is, or things like that, New York Harbor, right? That it could go in there and just, blow up enemy cities with literally no knowledge. I mean, you wouldn't even, because normally you wouldn't use like a torpedo to attack New York City, right? But you wouldn't get any warning at all. I mean, normally even if a submarine launches a nuclear weapon, you might get a couple minutes warning, maybe, I want to say back in the day, Moscow launching was maybe 20 to 30 minutes warning for us, and submarines was a couple minutes. But if it's something like this, you wouldn't even know they were there and they would go off. Now, having said that, we've got nuclear submarines. They can't find our nuclear submarines. If Russia attacks us with nuclear weapons, then our nuclear submarines attack then, and it's the end of the world. End of the world is not a good thing. None of us want it. But the whole idea is Russia knows that we would attack them if they attacked us, and they wouldn't survive it, and we wouldn't survive it. So hopefully that's enough of a disincentive that Russia will never do it. But it is still of concern. The Ukrainian nuclear power chief got released yesterday. Actually, we did find that yesterday. So that's the update on that. Sorry, I know we're over, but since people are really weighing in on the energy prices, I think it's interesting just to post them. Northern Ireland, quite a few businesses closing due to energy bills. Daniel, this is Daniel. Were you in Dublin? I mean, you're somewhere in Ireland, I know. We got bills for 5,000 euros for gas, open a 5-day week. It used to be about 22.50. Oh, wow. So it doubled, more than doubled. Wow. That's too bad. And if the business is weak, then even worse. Yeah. Wow. 60-day bill. Okay. Still it doubled. That's ridiculous. Mine, gas and electric has doubled per month in the UK. Yeah. That's a lot. I mean, that's very scary. Cause I mean, I imagine anybody, I mean, with my new heating and cooling unit, my energy bills are much better, but they're still in the winter. They could be $150 a month. Jumping to $300 a month would be a big difference. I mean, that's a lot. And that's just double. That would be a lot more. I mean, that would suck actually, and imagine somebody who's either, like Daniel was saying, if your business is really just scraping by, so you don't have extra money, or if you're blue collar or working class where, you don't even have a couple $100s to spare each month, and all of a sudden your bill goes up several $100s a month. That's scary. Gasoline in Norway is 27 to 28 per liter. 27 to 28 what per liter though? But Norway, you've got oil though. Shouldn't everything be cheap in Norway? I mean that quite seriously though. Isn't everything? I mean, I just assumed because you guys have oil, I know you become sort of very rich country as a result. I would assume that with energy, your energy prices would be sort of artificially low, or is that not the case? Let me just see more here. Well, that's the thing too. Empty History is talking about, social media reports of people pulling support for Ukraine could easily be Russian disinformation campaigns. That's true. Denmark, not as bad as in the South. Let me see here. Welcome from New Zealand. Hey, John in New Zealand. nice to see you. We're about to close up here for the evening, but good to see you. There's no heat and hot water in the Irish embassy. In the Irish, what do you mean? The Irish embassy where? Or do you mean the Russian embassy in Ireland? Or you mean the Irish embassy somewhere else? Empty History buffs, severing these key cables could seriously jeopardize internet connectivity across the world. However, satellite uplink could help bridge some of the gaps. Yeah, those are some of the undersea cables, some of them off of Ireland, actually a lot of them off of Ireland, that were worried about the Russians eventually trying to cut if war broke out, which would be a bad thing. More about thyroid and radioactive. The iodine takes up space in the thyroid, so the radioactive iodine can't take the space. Interesting. Okay. Tsunami nuke. Yeah. This torpedo was theorized to have an intercontinental range due to a nuclear power source. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like a shark. I mean, in essence. All right. Slava. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. You're all right. if anybody has Twitch privileges, do you want to get rid of the Russian over there on Twitch? Otherwise, I can, before we sign off, I'll go get rid of him. I will go. If we got any of the moderators still on Twitch, please grab him. Just because it annoys me. There's no reason to be a jerk. Let me see. Drives me a little crazy, though, with this. I always hate trying to find things here. Hold on, guys. Although I am about to hang up in a second because we're going to go over to, I'll go to the Discord and we'll hang out for a little bit on my Discord, discord.aravosis.com. Let me see. Always drives me crazy with this. My channel. There we go. There we go. Oh, bummer. That's okay. I'll grab the idiot if I can see him. Oh, nope. It's not going to show me his comment because he was there before. Oh, he's not very bright. He's not very bright. Well, that was dumb. Troll. He was kind of stupid because he was kind of stupid because the little troll was all over Twitch saying like Slava Rossi, which means, long live Russia. But because I logged in late, I wasn't able to see his comments. And I just said, oh, I can't see his comment. I can't ban him. So what did the idiot do? He messaged again. He went, long live Russia, long live Russia, long live Russia. And it was like, bam. It's like when the mosquito kind of comes and just goes right in front of you when you were waiting. And you're like, yes, now I can get to sleep. Now I can get to sleep. All right. Yes, I will do the quick recap for you guys. And then, like I said, we'll go, maybe not too long, but we'll go to Discord for a few minutes at least afterwards. All right. Exactly. Romulan Republican force. Amen, buddy. Amen. I know I may need to sort of I have to make one of you, hang on a second. I'm going to make one of you a little moderator over there while I'm at it here. Hold on. Why do they have to make this so hard? Oh, here we go. Okay, Jingle, you're a mod. All right. Since I see you enough, I trust you here. Yeah, just modded you, Jingle. Actually, Otan Bot, I'll put you too because I've seen you a lot too. Well, actually, I think Otan Bot. No, you're not the same as NATO Bot, though. See, Jingle's the one I recognize. Now you got me worried, Otan Bot, as to whether I remember you as a long-term person there or not. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm like not remembering because I haven't looked at a bit. Whereas Jingle, I remember. Let me hold off a little if you don't mind, Otan, because Jingle I remember because it always makes me laugh. It always makes me laugh when I see his name, so I'm always remembering that. Oh, has he been? Okay, I'll pick Otan as well then. All right, hold on. I just wanted to make sure. Sorry about that. Sorry, guys. But yeah, always helpful to have a few more on Twitch, just because, we don't necessarily need mod. Here we go. There we go. Okay, Otan, I think I've got you too. Okay, we should be good. All right, guys, excellent. At least this will keep Twitch at bay. All right, let me do a quick recap and then we'll go. Ukrainian forces have reportedly liberated more settlements in Kherson and Kharkiv. A Russian reporter on the scene in Kherson in the south says it is a disaster. The New York Times cited a number of Russian military bloggers basically very unhappy. I then showed a clip from a Kremlin TV propagandist who was livid and despondent. Oh, Flint. Bah! Flint, how did I miss you? How did I miss you? Oh, you know what? These things came up because Daniel just threw something in too. Hang on a second. I wasn't looking. Oh, you know why? Because I was looking at the goofball, that idiot's, the spammer. Yeah. I'm going to look and see. Oh, he did try to put multiple things, didn't he? The little jerk. Little jerk. Oh, there's Flint. Okay. Royal Navy, 12 warheads or more targeted on Putin's Dacha at the moment. Did they actually say that? Won't say how we know for obvious reasons. Oh, God. Okay. That's interesting. Thanks for that, Flint. A little creepy, but interesting update. And hang on a second. There was a Daniel. Thank you for that, Daniel, by the way. I blame the European Union for being a hostage to Russian energy and Russia for being evil and Slava Ukraini more than ever. I know, I mean, the thing is, The Americans have been saying, then again, you can't always trust the Americans, but the Americans have been saying for a long time, and thank you to the Dagana. I always appreciate that. I remember back in the, it's okay, Flint. I remember back in the 1980s, early 1980s, when I was studying in Paris. And I want to say that must have been the time they were either building or talking about Nord Stream 1. I just remember the big debate over the pipeline, and Reagan and everybody was saying, don't do it. And the Europeans were like, oh, you Americans. And I remember I was very anti-pipeline at the time because I was not a friend of the Soviet Union back then. But nonetheless, yeah. Wow. That's too bad. That's too bad. I know Twitch, who knew? Although you only got one, you only got one, didn't you? The Romulans fired a lot of HIMARS at the Russians? Who's we? Are you Ukrainian? You're not Ukrainian, are you? Romulan Republican force? Just curious. I know we never hear of problems over at Twitch. He was a true troll, clearly. I mean, that was like, oh, Germany. Ah, gotcha. Okay, nice. Except I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so we still love the Romulan thing. Always happy. Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, are you volunteering in Ukraine, though? You're not volunteering in Ukraine, are you? Sorry, Romulans weighing in. Just curious. All right. Either way, guys. Okay, I'm going to go over to the Discord. You can join us at the Discord. Discord. Oh, did I stop the? You look at you. You made me. I stopped it because we had the troll. I stopped my. So Kremlin TV is freaking out. They are German army teaching Ukrainians. Oh, that's very cool. Good for you. Good for you. And I'm glad to see the German army doing that as well. That's nice to see from Germany. So that's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. Good for you. The New York Times did an interesting story today, kind of sad, that the Ukrainians are liberating land without people because so many of their own people have left. North Korea is the only country so far to support the annexation of the Ukrainian territory by the Russians. The Iranians said, no, thank you. So even the Iranians aren't supporting the Russians. Over in the last 2 weeks since Putin announced the annexation, thank you, Elise. In the last 2 weeks since Putin announced the annexation, 700,000 Russians have left Russia and gone to neighboring countries, and this means men. Ms. Flint. Oh, I know. Oh, but I finally did put Flint. I finally got it. Unless Flint did another one. Unless Flint did another one, I finally did get Flint's. I'm pretty sure. So 700,000 Russian men have left. 200,000 Russian recruits have already been drafted, mobilized in theory. Elon Musk, whatever, go away, Elon. Ukrainian Ministry of Defense shared 2 images from a torture chamber that were really kind of creepy. I played a video from a Ukrainian Jew talking about how ridiculous it is to accuse the Ukrainians of being Enzis. Senior Russian military leaders are back to wearing USSR patches again. Biden announced $625 million in security assistance, including 4 HIMARS for Ukraine, which is a big deal. And then I showed a clip of Tucker Carlson, Fox News' big personality, who once again was doing the Kremlin's bidding. Big surprise. U.S. chip maker NVIDIA announced that it is finally pulling out entirely out of Russia. It was staying in just to support its employees, even though it had stopped doing business there, and now it's closing up entirely. And finally, I showed a really neat video of Iranian schoolgirls taking off their hijabs and cheering death to the dictator, which is pretty freaking cool. It's not 25 HIMARS, it is 4 HIMARS. I don't know what I said, but it's 4 HIMARS that are being sent. Bringing it from 16 to 20. It's not 55 HIMARS. It's 16 HIMARS from the U.S. We're sending 14 more, but there's a lot of multiple launch rocket systems there as well. That we know. Or are you saying, I'm sorry, wait, what are you saying there? I hope you're not divulging any national security secrets on our show here, Romulan. From what I know, we have 16 there. The 4 that are coming, which is good news from the 4, are going to be drawn from I am never a friend of the USSR, the 4 are going to be drawn from America's stocks of HIMARS. So they are going to be, they're going to go almost immediately. So they can go immediately, which is great news. So that's an increase of 25% of HIMARS. But again, the Ukrainians have already had access to MLRS systems as well. So that's good. Yeah. Oh, yes. The Russians have knocked out 56. That I know. Yes. The Ukrainians have only had 16 HIMARS, but the Russians claim that they've killed 56 of them so far, which, you've got to love the Russians. They're so efficient. All right, guys. Yeah, we'll go and hang a little bit. Not too long, but I'll go and hang a little bit. We'll go and hang a little bit on Discord, discord.aravosis.com. If you guys want to join us, that would be lovely. But thank you as always for the gifts and all. I will put up, as we're saying goodbye, I will put up just one. I always forget to sort of put this up, how you can help. Just various ways you can help. You can follow me. You can join my Patreon. I use my Patreon, patreon.com/aravosis. I use it actually for the Discord. But if you want, you can simply use it to make a monthly donation to help support my work, to help me keep doing this work. I would appreciate it. But if you want to join us at the Discord, that's cool too, because you can use the Patreon. Discord's free, but you get extra benefits and you support my work by becoming a paying member. So I very much appreciate it. But you don't even need to join the Discord if that's not your thing. You can just go to Patreon and sign up and support me. So patreon.com/aravosis. The rest is there. We can talk about it another day. But in any case, I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate all the super chat questions today. That was very nice of you all. And also the TikTok gifts are always super cool. I was going to say chouette. That's French slang. Probably not going to get me too much. Most of you aren't going to get what I'm talking about. Super cool of you all. So thank you for that. All right, guys. Sign off. See you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, as always, and join me at the discord.aravosis.com. All right. Thanks, guys. See you mañana.